Good morning, 3i. I hope you have survived your first week of lockdown reasonably well and that you've been able to do some enjoyable things at home as well as keeping up with your online lessons. Today we are going to just keep looking at some camera techniques to build on what you've already learned and what you've already taken as notes, because you need to know these terms so that you can analyze certain film scenes in order to be able to write an essay on Stand By Me, which is your next big task, which we won't get to this week probably. So let's start by getting your red exercise books ready. So you want to turn to the front of those where you took those notes in previous lessons on camera shots, and we're going to talk about camera movements now, because not only does a camera take a still shot, but cameras can actually move. So what I'd like you to do at any stage is to pause your video when you need to take notes. I'm not going to pause my video. I'll just tell you when a good moment is to press pause on the video, and then you can finish taking the notes in your own time. So the first thing to write is camera movements. That's your heading for today. And this shot that you're writing about is called a panning shot, when the camera is moved to the left or the right in a sweeping movement. So the camera sits on the tripod and the whole thing swings from the left or from the right to the left, or from the left to the right. So if you need to, pause my video now and write that in your books. Next important shot is a tilting shot, and this is very similar to the still shot that you wrote down as a tilt, but this is one that moves. So the camera actually starts low and tilts up usually, and the reason why a director might use that is to show the height of something. Pause here if you need to write those down. The next shot, one which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, is the zoom shot, which is when in a shot the director chooses to go in fast and move quite close into a shot so that you can see it with closer detail what's in the middle of that shot. That's what happens when you zoom in. Sometimes you can zoom out as well, and that shows more of the surrounds. But it is a moving shot where you move in or you move out. So please press pause if you need to take more time to write those notes. Our final camera movement that I want us to write down is the tracking shot. And this is actually called a tracking shot because you can see in the picture in front of you that the camera person is actually sitting on a kind of a railway track and can move quite fast to keep up with the subject, so that you're moving the whole camera is moving along at the same time as the person who's in the shot. There's a shot in our film in the junkyard scene where Gordy is running as fast as he can away from the dog, which is not a scary dog after all, but he doesn't know that, and he's running as fast as he can, and the tracking shot shows how fast he's running, it keeps up with him, and we get a sense of the speed and the terror that is in him as he runs because of the director's choice of a tracking shot. So please pause here if you need to have a bit more time to write those highlighted notes into your book. Now, we're going to move on now to other film techniques, because we've talked quite a lot about camera techniques in Stand By Me. We've looked at camera shots and angles and movements just now, and we've worked out a little bit about what kind of effect those particular shots can have on us as we watch a film. So camera techniques are about the way the director makes us look at things, but so far we haven't talked much about something else which is very important, which is sound. Now, if you remember a few days ago, I asked you to do a bit of analysis of the leeches scene, and I asked you to listen at the beginning of the scene to what you could hear. And I think what you would have written down on your sheet is that you could hear birds, you could hear the sound of the mud squelching, and those sounds were emphasized and brought out by the director for a particular purpose. So let's have a look at some sound techniques. And yes, they are highlighted, so I'd like you to be able to write these down. So pause after I've done this little introductory talk. Sound techniques. There are two different kinds of sound used by a director in a film. One is called diegetic, sometimes known as ambient sounds, and they are the sounds that the characters in a film can hear. So I've written there, for example, footsteps or a squeaky door, or in that leeches scene, they are the squelching mud and the sound of the birds and the lack of any other kind of sound. That's diegetic sound. Then there are also non-diegetic sounds, and those are the sounds which come from outside the scene. So have a think a minute as you write down these notes. So pause on your video, write down these notes, and have a think of it a minute about what kind of sounds do you hear in a film which are not heard by the characters that are in the film themselves. So hopefully you've started your video again and you're ready to think about what are the sorts of non-diegetic sounds that we might hear in a film. The most important examples in our film, Stand By Me, are music. And there's a lot of music and it creates a mood. And if you think about all your favorite movies, there will be, you might have a particular movie that you enjoy a lot and it'll probably have a really good soundtrack with some good music and some good songs which create mood. In Stand By Me, another thing that's very important, an important example of a non-diegetic sound, is the use of voiceover, because right from the start and all the way through the film, we have these voiceovers, which are the adult Gordy looking back and telling us about his story. And obviously the characters in the movie themselves cannot hear the narrator doing these voiceovers, but it's a really important technique which is used by the director in this film to tell the story. And finally, a really important another technique that is used. So those are the two important non-diegetic sounds. The important diegetic sounds that we have in this film help to provide understanding of setting. So when we have the squelching mud, we get a sense of how kind of disgusting it is that these boys have ended up in a big swamp, which is exactly what Vern didn't want to happen. And the sound of the birds in the woods kind of emphasizes that they're in the middle of nowhere in this natural setting and anything could happen. Of course, in that other scene where the wolves are crying at night and they all have to take a turn standing guard, the sound of the wolves is diegetic sound, and it emphasizes that actually they're in this natural wild place which is potentially full of danger. So music is non-diegetic, voiceover is non-diegetic. Diegetic sounds are obviously those that are from outside the scene and are called non-diegetic. Great. Now, before we finish this lesson, I want to talk about one more thing, and we haven't started to talk about these, but they are very important. They are the key themes that are in this film, because just as you studied themes in your novel at the beginning of the year, movies have themes, and they are the big ideas in a film or a book. So in this film, we have the realization that the four boys are at the end of childhood. This is an important theme in the film. What appears at the end of their journey is not the most important thing, it's the journey itself. So some of the themes that you will have been thinking about or you will have automatically understood as you've watched the film a few times are the theme of growing up. So before we go too much further, I'm going to highlight that and ask you to take these notes as well. And what I want you to do is highlight those bits and put me on pause while you copy those into your red book. The next theme that you want to write into your book is this theme of death, because that's very key to this film. It's about the realization that a child goes through at some point, that we're not going to live forever, and we all have to deal with that. Another theme is the theme of friendship, and that's a very important theme. As you can probably realize, these four boys go through a lot on their adventure, and they do it together as friends. So you should have written all that in your book by now. Finally, I'm just going to talk you through this. You don't have to copy these. Much of this film is about the theme of growing up and the boys' inevitable journey towards maturity and adulthood. And death. These two key themes are intertwined. The two key themes that are intertwined as well are the themes of friendship and loyalty. Much of this film is about the importance of friendship and how a good friendship can bring healing from past hurts and hope for the future. So gentlemen, I'm going to finish there for today. I'm going to put these slides up on Graminet in the Stand By Me film study folder, so you can catch up on notes or read it again at your own time. Of course, you can play the video again as many times as you like. The second thing I'd like you to do today for your lesson is just to go and take a look at the answers to yesterday's film shot chart, and those 18 different boxes that you needed to fill in, and take a look at my answers and mark what you have done. And otherwise, I hope you have a good day, and I'll speak to you again soon.